Recording in progress.
Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. On behalf of MCure Pharmaceuticals, this is Balaji welcoming you to the webinar on the updates of CROI 2025. It is said that knowledge is power. And these three words are so powerful that we regroup every year to discuss what are the latest updates in CROI. And MCure, once again, in a traditional way, have come up with hosting this webinar. We have a pleasure in having Dr. N. Kumaraswamy, who will be the chief speaker for this for today's webinar. And to introduce him, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Ketan Kulkarni, my colleague and head of medical services from MCure Pharmaceuticals. Over to Dr. Ketan.
Thank you, Balaji sir. First of all, let me thank you to Dr. N. Kumaraswamy sir for sharing his valuable insights on the recently held CROI conference, which is one of the prestigious conference across the world, and a lot of international speakers they attend this conference. And Dr. Kumaraswamy sir will enlighten us all on the recent updates on this conference. So I'll share the CV of Dr. Kumaraswamy sir. So Dr. N. Kumaraswamy sir is the Chief and Director of VHS Infectious Diseases Medical Center from Chennai, India. He is the director at the Chennai Antiretroviral Research and Treatment, that is CART. It's a clinical research site which conducts therapeutics and biomedical prevention clinical trials in infectious diseases. He's the clinical investigator for various projects with Brown University from US, University of California, San Diego, Harvard University, University of Washington, University of Colorado, AMFAR Treat Asia, University of College, UK, University of Bern, Switzerland, and also for WHO, DBT, and ICMR. He is a clinician and researcher in infectious diseases with more than 25 years of experience and published more than 475 manuscripts in various peer-reviewed medical journals. He is the advisor and expert panel member for WHO ARE Treatment Guidelines Committee and a clinical advisor to the Clinton Health Access Initiative. So thank you, sir. And with this, I hand over the session to you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So at the outset, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to do this update on the recently conducted retrovirus conference in San Francisco. I'm going to share my slides, then I will talk about all those quickly. Dr. Ketan, maybe you can tell whether my slides are all shared.
Go to the full view.
Yeah, I'm going to do that in a second. Can you see my slides?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it and moving, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm planning to do, in this next 40 minutes or so, is going to give you a little idea about some of those key updates on antiretroviral treatment, about some of the new therapies which is in pipeline, and also touching upon what you might be using in your clinical settings, either by this year end or by the next couple of years. There are also several presentations which focused on some of the new therapies, which I will little browse through. Many times we may not use them, but it's worth to know about them because some of those positive from that we may use it in other forms of therapeutics. So this CROI conference happened in San Francisco between March 9 to 12, 2025. Many of you know that this is one of the conference for HIV, where a lot of new research findings are presented every year, and some of those new therapies and pipeline will also be introduced, during this conference. So in this CROI 2025, there were discussions and presentations on some of the new drugs as part of the HIV treatment. There are a lot of discussions on new biomedical HIV prevention, especially long-actings. There were discussions on new comorbidities management, particularly on obesity, and also about some of those newer aspects in preventing co-infections and as well as STIs. Just for want of time, I'll not be able to cover everything, but I will cover most of the stuff on new drugs, which are the pipeline for treatment. And if time permits, I may also little touch upon biomedical, HIV prevention. So this is the outline of, my talk. To start with, as I'm sure many of you know about this, and I have also spoken in this forum many times about this long-acting injectable. As you know that these are the two drugs, cabotegravir and rilpivirine. Cabotegravir is an integrase inhibitor and rilpivirine is an NRTI. Both drugs are being already approved by the US FDA for treatment, as many of you know that. So this is again based following a clinical trial which was done like 4 years back called LATE-2, where in that particular trial, phase 3, the dosing of every 2 months is being recommended as for future therapies based on the outcome. Also, this trial was well supported by 2 other studies called Atlas and Flare, which has long been carried out and been published. So these are the studies which really help to approve this drug in the US FDA and became part of guidelines in those rich settings. 2 years back, when this drug was being approved, very few individuals or clinics had access to these medications because it was been prepared in the rich settings by the innovator companies, not been widely available, and also, just became part of those US FDA approved drug. So in San Francisco, there is a researcher named Monica Gandhi, who's a very famous infectious disease clinician and a researcher, used this drug in her routine chronic patients who were not adhering to their medications, but who are being viremic or who got a suppressed viral load, but who did not have any integrase mutations or NNRT mutations, just using social workers, gave these injections every 2 months. So they showed that these patients who were not been adhering to these medications, they all had a suppressed viral load. Within 16 weeks, they were able to show this. This is a very difficult population. So at that time, there are a lot of questions came whether this will sustain on a long run, because these two drugs, one is an NNRTA, one is an integrase inhibitor. So again, last year at the retrovirus, the same group showed that at week 48, almost around 81% of them had a suppressed viral load of less than 50 copies. But this particular study, it is an observational study, a clinical study. They excluded all those patients who got NNRTA mutations or integrase mutations. So they did the genotyping and they have been recruiting for this observational study. So following the outcome of this study last year, in March 2024, US guidelines, DHS's guidelines and IA's USA guideline, and as well as British and European guidelines, they recommended this combination of long-acting cabotegravir and this NNRTA rilpivirine as part of the treatment, especially on patients who have got a suppressed viral load, who are not able to take oral antiretroviral drug, where they have a virus susceptible to both cabotegravir and rilpivirine, where this drug can be recommended. So they very clearly said that you need to have a genotyping profile where they should not have at baseline any integrase mutation as NNRTA mutation. Even in the past, they should not have failed NNRTA containing therapy. So this was a recommendation, and following this outcome of this recommendation was being disseminated in the research settings. Can we use this in a resource-limited settings where we already have 10% or more baseline NNRTA mutations? And following that, now we have completely moved out of NNRTA like efavirenz and nevirapine into integrase. Can you go back into this rilpivirine and NNRTA? So whatever available data till last year, the resource-limited setting guideline, especially the WHO guideline, all our national guidelines or any other resource-limited setting guidelines, will not be able to recommend because we don't do these routine baseline genotyping, especially NNRTA, as well as we know that NNRTA mutations or high in resource-limited settings. Just to support the usage of these for resource-limited setting, there is a study was carried out in sub-Saharan Africa where they had a high prevalence of NNRTA mutations. Many of you know that they have a higher NNRTA mutation than in India. So this study called CARE study, which was being carried out in sub-Saharan Africa in 3 countries, where they used long-acting cabotegravir and rilpivirine for treatment using the public health approach. So what they did in this study is, it is a multi-center in 3 countries, randomized trial, where they recruited patients who are more than 18 years of age, who are receiving stable oral antiretroviral drug with a suppressed viral load of less than 50 copies, with no hepatitis B infection, because as you know that cabotegravir and rilpivirine will not take care of Hep B infection. So again, they did a 1:1 randomization where one group were randomized to initial to a lead dose of oral cabotegravir and rilpivirine. Then it was very optional. Not everyone was put on, but almost everyone received long-acting cabotegravir and rilpivirine every 2 months as per the research setting guidelines. And the other randomized group went into the whatever oral antiretroviral drug, which was being very stable and they have a suppressed viral load. They were asked to continue in this. Again, no genotyping was done at baseline, but the blood samples are stored for future genotyping. Again, just for information, these are the region where they have a high prevalence of NNRTI mutations. So again, the primary endpoint was HIV RNA of less than 50 copies at week 48, and with the secondary endpoints of RNA of more than 50 copies and confirmed virological field of 2 different viral load. So again, last year, this group already presented the week 48 data showing that both arms are being non-inferior. So at that time, there are a lot of questions came. Hey, this is a very short-term study, just 48 weeks, a year. If you follow these participants over a period of time, because some of them will have a background NNRTA mutations, so whether this virological suppression will be maintained or not. So that was answered at this retrovirus conference. So again, this study was being carried out in 3 countries, in Uganda, Kenya, and South Africa, where they had a very high prevalence of NNRTA mutation. So 512 participants were randomized into 2 different groups. One group received the long-acting, other group the oral therapy. So this is a baseline characteristics. Again, just for your information, no baseline genotyping was done when they recruited for this particular trial. But from the stored samples, they did resistant testing. And just for information, just have it in mind that it's almost NNRTA mutations around 7%, and also cabotegravir resistant mutations have also been present in 10%, at baseline. This is something from the archived mutations. They did a pro-viral DNA analysis using deep sequencing, and they found in that. But it was not used at baseline to randomize these participants. So this group last year, they showed that both arms, both the long-acting cabotegravir rilpivirine and the oral everyday therapy, almost equal virological suppression, and both are being non-inferior. They very clearly shows that, and also they said excellent response among the study participants in terms of acceptance to these injections. So in this CROI conference last month, the group again continued this participant, and they presented the week 96 data, where they continue to see the similar observation. That is, this long-acting cabotegravir rilpivirine, as shown by this darker green bar, is being non-inferior as compared to everyday oral treatment. This very clearly shows that even in a population where they have a baseline of high NNRTI mutations, and also in this they found almost 7% NNRTI, and as well as the rare instances of cabotegravir mutation, they still were able to see good activity, and they concluded stating that this particular long-acting injectable, even in a resource-limited setting, is good as compared to the oral treatment. And also in that they found that 97% of them, out of those 3,000 odd injections, were administered on time. So that means patient came on time to receive these injections every 2 months. And what they also found in that is, this safety has been, quite safe, and no one discontinued this drug because of any injection site reactions or any other grade 3, toxicity. This is something what been seen in this even at week 96. So when they looked at the virological failure, there are 4 participants in the long-acting arm. They failed as per the virological failure strict definition of 2 different viral load. But all those participants, when they were put on everyday oral therapy, they all got suppressed. So again, this particular virological failure, which has been very, very important, especially for us as clinicians, to know that why they failed, despite they had injections all these times. So when they are being further analyzed case by case, what they have seen in that is there are a couple of participants had a baseline NRTA mutations, and also a couple of others had a baseline cabotegravir mutation. Probably that could be one of those failure. And also there is one of those participants who had a very high, of course the BMA was high. Probably there is a discussion that whether this particular dosage is enough for. These are some of the speculation happened, but again, it's very clear they had a couple of baseline mutation, probably could be one of those. But very interestingly, all those got suppressed when they put on the oral therapy of tenofovir, lamivudine, and dolutegravir in those study participants. And this particular study also had several secondary objectives of looking in the treatment satisfaction. That today our patients are very stable after taking treatment. There are a significant number of our patients that are doing well, I'm fine and everything. So if you ask them to come to our clinic every 2 months to have an injection, whether they like these or they prefer these are some of those questions they asked in that particular survey. And that what they found in that is 99% of the patients who are on the long-acting cabotegravir and rilpivirine express preference for long-acting over oral therapies. So that means the acceptance in this particular study, quite a large study of 500 odd patients, out of those 250 were on long-acting drug. They accepted, this therapy, very well in those settings. So the investigators concluded the study by stating that switching to long-acting cabotegravir rilpivirine is non-inferior as compared to everyday oral treatment at week 96 as a public health approach with the limited viral load. So, usually in the randomized trials, we do viral load every other month or every month to see this. In this as part of the public health approach has not been, used that, frequently. And also in this population, the participants have got a highly obese in this, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. And also almost everyone had a prior NRTA exposure to nevirapine or efavirenz, and they had a high prevalent NRTA mutations and 3 countries with different viral subtypes. And they found it's been very safe and well tolerated. And there is an increased treatment satisfactions in patients who switch to this long-acting cabotegravir and rilpivirine. So what's the carry-home message from that is, now the WHO guidelines is in the process of getting updated. So the one what we have been using is a one from the 2021. After that, there are a little bit amendments, but not major addition. But you can expect new guidelines be launched in this July 2025. There are a lot of discussions about some of the newer therapies. So again, this particular study, which just got presented last month, now the outcome of this study and the results from these are being taken very seriously, especially how we can use this in a resource-limited setting. Just watch for this guideline in July 2025 from WHO. There are possibilities. I cannot say that what will happen, but this is a very positive response from this case study that probably this particular regimen can be our future treatment option, even in resource-limited setting, which we had some doubts a year back, but now that's been solved by this, case study. Now, moving to the next study, which I'm going to talk about, is called laptop study. Very interesting. So, as we all know that as clinicians, we all take care of patients with very advanced disease. Still, 20 to 30% of our patients come to a clinic, they have advanced disease. Either they are sick with one or more opportunistic infections, or their CD4 is less than 200, or sometime anytime at 50, and they are very sick. That's what they have been tested for HIV and referred to you. There were discussions among clinicians, do we need to do a very powerful drug like protease inhibitors for initiating treatment, especially people who got a low CD4? Now, that's not the case. We do have a guideline where still use TLD as a presenting treatment, but do you have to use protease inhibitors or not? Also, why I purposely chose this study is now in our country, we have bictegravir is also been available in a generically. It's also been available as a single pill of TAF, emtricitabine, and bictegravir. So this particular study didn't happen in research, it was in European countries, 7 European countries, where they still were seeing a lot of advanced disease patients. So they recruited 440 patients and randomized into 2 groups. One group, they received TAF, emtricitabine, and bictegravir. Another group on a boosted darunavir. There they use cobicistat with darunavir. We use darunavir along with TAF and emtricitabine. Now, anyone who had tuberculosis, they excluded, because as you know that patients who have got TB and who is on rifampicin-containing therapy, we cannot use bictegravir, and also we cannot use darunavir. They are excluded. All the other patients with advanced disease, either cryptococcal meningitis or PCP or any other bacterial infections or any diarrheal diseases, they have been included in this particular trial. So the primary outcome of this particular study is to find out the time to treatment failure as defined as the first occurrence of any of those composite specific virological or clinical events. And again, virological event is typical virological failure, and clinical event is any new opportunistic infection or worsening of those current opportunistic infection. And again, the whole objective of the study is to test whether integrase inhibitor using bictegravir, which is non-inferior to a darunavir, booster darunavir, which we all always feel that is a much more powerful drug. That's what we use for second line. So this is the outcome of this study. Again, the primary outcome is to look into the virological failure or the clinical events. So again, these are the patients who are recruited with the median CD4 very, very low. It's around 41. And at week 48, what's been seen in that is, if you see this forest plot graph between booster darunavir and bictegravir, is almost a non-inferior. Both of those, are non-inferior. But if you look into those component of the virological failure, as shown by this red color curve, it shows that patients who are on bictegravir, so they have a much more better virological response than even booster darunavir. That's something that's been seen. If you see this, the hazard ratio which has been adjusted favors towards the bictegravir than darunavir. All the other things, if we look into that, it's almost like non-inferior. There's no major difference, not been statistically significant. Again, if you look into those proportion of virological suppression between these two arms, bictegravir is shown by red color and the plots, and as well as darunavir on this blue, is almost like same. And initially, there is some statistical difference in the first 12 weeks, but after that, if you see this over a period of time, there is no difference. If we look into the CD4 again, there is no difference between these two, and this very clearly shows that both these drugs are totally good, and they are non-inferior, and the bictegravir is non-inferior in patient even presenting with a very low CD4 and advanced disease. So again, this particular study called laptop study, which has been the investigated, concluded stating that even in advanced disease, a combination of TAF, emtricitabine, and bictegravir, currently available generically here in India, was non-inferior to booster darunavir for all those composite outcome of virological failure and clinical events. And also in this particular study, it's been found that this combination of TAF, emtricitabine, and bictegravir has got a significantly lower virological failure as compared to darunavir. I will not call it as a superiority. It's got a lower virological because there is a definition for superiority. And if you look into those adverse events, I didn't go into the details. There were less adverse events with the bictegravir arm as compared to darunavir arm. So the investigators concluded stating that this particular combination of bictegravir, emtricitabine, and TAF was non-inferior to booster darunavir in advanced patients. Again, what's the carry-home message? Of course, we do see advanced disease, but on the other hand, significant number of patients who are having advanced disease also can have tuberculosis, can have pulmonary TB, CNS TB, can have extrapulmonary TB. In that conditions, we will not be able to use bictegravir because there are PK studies have been shown. If you want to use, you have to double the dose of bictegravir, similar like like how you are used for the dolutegravir. But again, as you know, that bictegravir alone is not been available separately as a single pill like dolutegravir. So then you may also have to use TAP also double the dose as a single pill, which again is not being recommended. Hence, at this time, in your clinical practice, in the advanced disease, if patients come, you can use bictegravir, but don't use it in patients who got TB. But still, you can use with dolutegravir containing therapy. So that's been still preferred by doubling the dose. But bictegravir is recommended in all other advanced disease where patients will really do well based on this, laptop study. So moving to some of those future potential HIV treatments with outcomes from this CROI study, as many of you know that you're all using this drug called Twinak in our country. It has been approved by US FDA by a name called Dovato. It's a combination of lamivudine and dolutegravir, which is recommended to use in suppressed viral load. I'm sure you're all using in your clinical patient. If you're using, please do repeat the viral load within 2 to 3 months. Make sure that they are being suppressed. Don't use in hepatitis B infected people and as well as in patients who are already on TB therapy. Again, it's not been recommended. So this is something what we have been already using, but not part of our WHO guideline or resource limited setting guideline. But there are a lot of discussions and there are a lot of data on observation data also been presented. Right, we'll make sure that whether this drug will come into this one of those resource limited setting. Again, wait for the WHO 2025 guideline. There might be mention about some of the 2-drug therapy because this has got a validity, especially in our patient population, to prevent renal toxicity by dropping tenofovir. So this is something what we are going to look at, and there were several presentations on that. I'm not going into the detail, but on the other hand, as part of a new therapy, do we have other 2-drug options? Whether anything in the pipeline sparing, tenofovir containing therapy. So this is something what's been presented at this CROI, which is again very interesting. And I think this group I would have presented in the past about some of those phase 2 data is on the combination of a 2-drug therapy called doravirine and its latravir. And again, doravirine is third, we call third generation NNRTI, and it's latravir. It's again a nucleoside reverse transcriptase translocation inhibitor. So we all have like AZT, 3DC, and tenofovir, which are all nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitor. This has got a little more different pathway in inhibiting, HIV replication at the translocation level. Again, it's a very powerful drug. So these two drugs as a combination, which is developed by a company called Merck, and this particular trial as MK8591 was been presented as a phase 3 data, which again, the previous studies, some of those studies where they use a different dosage of latravir have reported declines in lymphocyte and CD4 cell count. Because of that, these drugs were put as a pause for some time. Then there's repeated phase-ranging studies were done, and based on that, 0.25 milligrams of latravir has been picked up for further development. And again, at this CROI, now this new drug combination on a phase 3 trial was presented with the week 48 data. So what is this study? Again, this is a design of this study where patients who got a suppressed viral load, who are already on stable everyday oral therapy, who got a CD4 more than 50 cells, and the total lymphocyte count of more than 650, no active hepatitis B, because again, this particular drug cannot be used in Hep B patients or who have got any known doravirine resistance, which is unlikely in our region because the third generation NNRTI. It was randomized to 2 groups. One group received this interesting combination of doravirine and latravir. Doravirine with a dosage of 100 milligrams, latravir as a 0.25 milligram. That was been picked up from the earlier phase 2B and phase 3 studies, and that did not decline any lymphocyte count. And the other arm continued the same ART for up to 48 weeks, and there was an option to move them to the same drug based on the outcome of these 48-week data. Again, this study was designed to run up to 144 weeks, but here I'm presenting the 48-week data. The primary endpoint of HIV RNA more than 50 copies at week 48 with a non-inferiority margin of 4%. And again, these are the baseline characteristics between the 2 groups. If you look into that, it's almost the same in terms of different characteristics like the age and sex and different ethnicity and the median time since diagnosis, and as well as the duration of ART between the 2 arms, almost the same. There were some differences from the baseline ART, which is understood, and also on the previous usage of tenofovir in between. So again, otherwise, if we look into that, this baseline characteristics would not have anything confounded any outcome of this particular study. So what these investigators shown and this CROI at the week 48 data is on the non-inferiority between these two combinations. So this a dark green bar chart on patients who are on doravirine and Lenacapavir, two drug combinations, and the orange one is on patients who are on everyday oral treatment. You see this 95% virological suppression on the two drug therapy versus 91% suppression on the triple therapy with everyday oral treatment. This very clearly shows that this particular regimen is being non-inferior and again can be superior. Further analysis has been further going on. So that means right now we have another one, two drug therapy, which is again tenofovir sparing for patients who are on long suppressed with tenofovir containing therapy. And we are scared to use a drug because of renal toxicity and as well as bone complications. Probably this could be another one of those options. So very interestingly, the previous studies using this Lenacapavir had shown decline in the lymphocyte count. So in this particular phase 3 large study, the randomized very clearly shows that there's no difference between these two arms, both on the everyday oral therapy and as well as these two drug therapy. So both are almost superimposed over a period of 48 weeks between total lymphocyte count and as well as a CD4 between the two arms. And very interestingly, there was also a sub-study, not very much powered for that. So there's a sub-study since they collected the weight, whether this can be a good option, especially for people who have been gaining weight, which we know that, integrase inhibitors, chronic patients put on a lot of weight, whether this is doravirine, Lenacapavir can be a better option. But again, investigators found a negative response, finding that doravirine also causes the weight gain. But again, this is just a 48-week data. We need to have a little more deeper dive into those data and as well as larger studies to show that whether this also produces weight gain. So at this time, it smells that it does not going to solve that particular problem. This also causes weight gain, but on the other hand, we need a little more larger data. Looking into the safety, again, completely safer as compared to the everyday oral therapy. There is no major difference between the adverse events, and no treatment-related serious adverse events had been seen, and no deaths, especially in participants who are on doravirine or Lenacapavir, or no one discontinued because of any toxicities. All those what have been reported is been part of the clinical disease or part of any clinical trials. So the investigators concluded, stating again, this combination of doravirine, which is an NNRTI, is Lenacapavir, which is again nucleoside reverse transcriptase translocation inhibitor, is been non-inferior as compared to everyday oral treatment. And also the study concluded stating that there is no change in the CD4 cell counts as compared to the everyday oral therapy. There was an increase in CD4 cell count, but did not decline. The safety and tolerability is similar between the two arms. Again, what's the carry home? Again, this can be another options. Again, currently not available in resource-limited setting. Again, Lenacapavir is still not been approved by US FDA. Again, in the process, this particular study might make it, get it to the goalpost. But now these two pills can be a future options. Now we have Indian generic manufacturers. They can do any such tablets, and also probably if it gets approved by US FDA, being part of the guidelines, they can even make it as a single pill. How they do have a Tunact as a single tablet of dolutegravir and lamivudine, maybe doravirine, Lenacapavir can be a future single pill true drug regimen. Watch for it. You may not have it in a clinic this year. Maybe next year you may use it to become part of the guideline. Again, this particular phase 3 data is being showing towards this particular combination of true drug therapy. Again, moving away from integrase inhibitors and as well as away from tenofovir containing therapy. Again, can also be an option where with the background integrase mutations, this could be one of those options in future to use it in our clinical therapeutics. Then moving to those other drugs, again, the Lenacapavir is again not anymore a new drug. It's already been approved by US FDA. As many of you know that it is a capsid inhibitor, new mechanism of action. Already been developed both as a weekly oral tablet and as well as injectable of every 6 months of subcutaneous. And there are 2 studies in the past have shown it's been very efficacious, both in patients who are antiretroviral naive and as well as people who are already failed therapy, even as for switching therapy every 6 months. So, and because of that, US FDA approved for this, for especially for patients who have been heavily treatment experienced and failed. So one of those issues clinicians faced, especially in the resource-rich setting where it was available, is with whom what to pair, because here it is available as a subcutaneous injection of every 6 months. You need other antiretroviral drugs. They did not have a good partner because cabotegravir, which has been approved, is every 2 months. You don't have every 6 months therapy. All the other oral medications are all everyday therapy. So unless you pair with them, it's very difficult successfully, give this every, 6 months. So in CROI, this particular phase 2 study was being presented by pairing two monoclonal antibodies. So this along with the Lenacapavir called therapies and as well as silerimab. Again, this is not a new drug. It's already been studied, but they had smaller patient data in the past. Now we have a little more larger phase 2 data being presented. So again, as many of you know, that Lenacapavir is a long-acting capsid inhibitor. Now it's been available up to say every 6 months and recommended for patients who have got a MDR HIV. And these are the two broadly neutralizing antibodies. One called TAB, and which is therapies, and SAB, which is silerimab. So you know that MAB is all for neutralizing antibodies or for monoclonal antibodies. So these are all modified. It's developed in a way in the lab. It's modified to extend this half-life up to 6 months in a way that it will match with the Lenacapavir. So this is something, the beauty of this product where you can do it. So how this TAB, that bNAb, which is working, is it targets a CD4 binding site of GP120, and SAB, which is again a broadly neutralizing antibody, targets a B3 glycan at the HIV envelope level, thereby it suppresses the virus at that level. So the phase 1b study was earlier being presented on 20 patients where they found that virological suppression was seen in 18% patients over a period of 6 months, which is very highly susceptible to these bNAbs. So in this particular conference, where it has been presented on a phase 2 data on patients who received Lenacapavir subcutaneously every 6 months, along with this TAB and SAB every 6 months versus everyday oral therapy, which is a good partner for this Lenacapavir for every 6 months. So this is the design of the study. It's again a multi-center phase 2 study where the investigator recruited 80 study participants who are virologically stable for more than 12 months. And also they did some viral susceptibility testing to these bNAb. This is very important. Using bNAb, you also need to do whether they are having any antibodies to these drugs already. So that's something very difficult in a resource-limited setting before you use this, but it should be done. So that's another reason that it might be a limiting factor to use these medications in a resource-limited setting. So again, in this particular trial, they excluded hepatitis B patients, randomized to an arm which contained Lenacapavir subcutaneously every 6 months with a 927 milligrams, and along with that, they used two other bNAbs, which is TAB and as well as the SAB every 6 months as an intravenous form. So one is a subcutaneous every 6 months, other two are intravenous every 6 months, which was randomized against everyday oral therapy. So again, 2:1 randomization. So two individuals received the test arm of Lenacapavir, TAB, and SAB, and there is one individual using this randomization on everyday oral therapy. Again, the study was being targeted for week 52 with the primary endpoint of HIV RNA more than week 26, and with the secondary outcomes of on CD4 safety, and as well as on some of those pharmacokinetic studies, including some of those anti-drug antibodies, which develops over a period of time, particularly to the bNAbs. So this is the baseline characteristics. In this, if you see this, there is no significant difference in terms of to show that will cause any confounders. And again, when you look into those efficacy week 26, that's a primary endpoint. This we found that there is only one patient who failed with the Lenacapavir, TAB and SAB. And again, this particular participant again got suppressed after week 26 when they changed to the everyday treatment. So there's no statistical difference between these two arms. The study's been well powered using FDA snapshot analysis on those viral endpoint, stating that it's totally been non-inferior. So very importantly to know about the pharmacokinetics. We all know that Lenacapavir is already approved. Every 6 months can be given. Already a lot of PK studies have been done. So in this particular phase 2 study which was presented at CROI, they also showed the pharmacokinetics of both these bNAbs of TAB and SAB where they found that it shows, if you see the IC90 is well above the suppressed level, even up to beyond week 24. So this very clearly shows that these two can be used very well along with lenacapavir every 6 months. It's another way where it can be partnered at lenacapavir. Right now, we don't have a drug to partner with lenacapavir for every 6 months. And when they looked into those adverse events, of course, with the oral therapy, which is very safe, and with the injectable, we expect some adverse events like injection site reactions. But it very clearly shows that there is nothing major serious, which is leading to almost no one discontinued because of any injection site reactions. And when they looked into some of those injection site nodules and infusion-related things, there's nothing serious which causes any disruptions of these study medications. So these investigators concluded saying that this combination of lenacapavir, subcutaneous every 6 months, along with these two bNAbs, which is tab and SAB given every 6 months, is almost non-inferior to everyday oral therapy, which has been well tolerated, which has been safer. There are no major injection site reactions or infusion-related reactions to discontinue. And also, they found certain anti-drug antibodies during this week 26 follow-up, but that did not appear anything on the efficacy or on the pharmacokinetics. So that means this can be another good option, but not sure that how we are going to use this in a resource-limited setting, because we need testing for bNAb susceptibility, before use it. But this is something what's been seen in this particular study. Again, we need to wait for a little more long-term efficacy and so the safety data of this combination of lenacapavir with the bNAbs using every 6 months. Moving to these other broadly neutralizing antibodies which are under development. So this is a new drug which has been developed by, GSK ViiV as this N6LS, which is a broadly neutralizing antibodies, which has already been shown to be safer and has got some good toxicity profile and good antiviral activities in one of those earlier study called Banner study in a phase 2A. And when this has also been combined with another recombinant human enzyme, also the investigators in the past, they found that it has got a better absorption when it is given as subcutaneous, and they're shown in one of those phase 1 study in the STAND study. So with using the results from both those previous studies, they constructed this particular phase 2B study where they used this particular drug in patients who are virologically suppressed and to switching them to monthly cabotegravir in combination to one of those broadly neutralizing antibodies, either N6LS intravenously or every 4 months, or using this bNAb of N6LS subcutaneously along with this recombinant human enzyme every 4 months. So this is one is an intravenous, another one is subcutaneous every 4 months along with a monthly cabotegravir. So this is a design of the study where again the recruited patient got a suppressed viral load. They randomized into 2:1 of 125 study participants, where again one arm received intravenous along with every month injectable cabotegravir. Another arm received a subcutaneous every 4 months along with every month the cabotegravir. And the third arm was a standard of care everyday oral therapy. Again, with the primary endpoint of plasma viral load more than 50 copies at month 6, and with the key secondary endpoints of various on CD4 cell response and as well as safety. I'll just skip the baseline characteristic. There is nothing major significant to show that anything will confound the outcome. When you look into those virological efficacy at 6 months, there were more failures at subcutaneous arm as compared to intravenous and everyday oral therapy. So this is something what's been seen in that. But again, the response is they're able to maintain the virological suppression, but more virological failure as per the study protocol had been seen in this particular therapy using this broadly neutralizing antibody. But no instance of serious adverse events. It has been safer, and no one discontinued because of any injection site reactions. But more adverse events were in the subcutaneous arm, which is being expected. Almost 70 patients complained of some nodules or injection site reactions as compared to intravenous. But it was well tolerated, no major adverse event to discontinue, and no new safety signals were also being seen in this. So they concluded, this particular study stating that people with virologically suppressed on stable ART switching to intravenous this N6LS, which is the bNAb, or subcutaneous every 4 months in combination with monthly cabotegravir, maintain virological suppression with HIV susceptible to do these two bNAbs. But on the other hand, little more virological failures is in, but there was not statistically significant. The numbers are very small. That's what's been seen in that. And again, intravenous was more tolerated as compared to subcutaneous. So hence, the investigators are dropping the subcutaneous arms. It has got a little more virological failure as well as more adverse events. And they're going ahead with the development of every 6 months intravenous form of this N6LS. And they want to study along with that long-acting cabotegravir. As we know that long-acting cabotegravir is already approved every 2 months. And also there is a new preparation already been developed by the company using nano preparation of every 4 months. Also now they are going to target every 6 months. So they might be using this every 6 months in this Embrace Part 2 study, which we will wait for the results. Again, these are all bNAbs area where how they are using antiviral sparing a drug along with the long-acting antiviral using this bNAb study. Again, wait for more research. This is something what's been presented by this group. Now, moving to two new drugs, which I want to talk about and why this will be relevant, especially in our resource-limited set. Yes, we all know that this our integrase inhibitor of dolutegravir is such a potent drug, very safe drug on a long run, and many of those clinical trials have shown that even patients who fail, there are no mutations. Again, if you see this meta-analysis of various published studies where patients who are used in naive patients, they never seen any mutation. But even in viremic patients, very few mutations. But on the other hand, if you see the bottom two column, where you can see these patients who have used this in viremic, especially you're switching patients who are already on TLE and efavirenz with a high viral load, or on any other regimens with a high viral load, if you change to TLD, there is a higher chance of developing resistance mutations to dolutegravir, which has already been seen as well as in monotherapy. Again, to compare this, do we have any newer drugs coming up? Again, this is also a report released by WHO last year, stating that in patients who are already experienced with treatment with antiretroviral drug and transitioning to a DTG-containing therapy with high viral load, there are possibilities of higher chance of virological failure leading to dolutegravir resistance. They also talked about up to around 19.6%. So quite a high, especially with this such a potent drug. It's already been shown by WHO in their surveys done across resource-limited settings. Again, do we have any drug if they have dolutegravir resistance, any other newer integrase inhibitors? And again, the same company, have now developed this, and they have presented the proof of concept studies. Again, it's a third generation INSTI, which they have already shown in vitro activity against dolutegravir and cabotegravir resistant viruses. And they also shown by day 10 have a huge suppression to viral load in a huge reduction as compared to the baseline viral load and with no serious adverse events. And again, too early to talk about this drug, but on the other hand, it shows huge activity in dolutegravir resistant viruses, which is again a third generation integrase inhibitors. And also now there is a plan to develop as a long-acting injectable, maybe every 6 months, and there will be a study will be starting soon. So this is something, wait for it. So there are drugs going to be available soon on patients who are already failing dolutegravir containing therapy. So also, GSK is also developing a newer capsid inhibitor. As you know that Lenacapavir is a capsid inhibitor developed by Gilead. Now, ViiV has also been developing, they have already shown there is a new drug showing very high efficacy, especially in patients who already have a lot of other drug-resistant viruses and with no adverse events in small-scale studies. And again, new phase 2 study is being developed. And also there is a plan to develop this a long-acting injectable of every 6 months. So that means we are going to have a lot of long-acting in pipeline. So in over a period of time, this is something what you should wait for, which our patients will love to have this rather than taking every tablet. Again, these are the drugs now it's under development. The phase 2 studies are going to start anytime soon. So moving to anything on cure, have you cured? Right now, there is no cure for HIV, but on the other hand, there are attempts to cure this virus without antiretroviral drugs. There's a very nice study been presented called RIO, which is again a phase 2 study, which evaluated again the bNAb without antiretroviral drugs, stopping the antiretroviral drug for HIV viremic control. So these are the two bNAbs already being studied very well. One binds at the CD4 binding site called 3BNC117, another one called 1074, which is again an investigational bNAb to target at the B3 glycan, the HIV envelope, which already have shown small-scale studies. It helps suppress viremia, but also the previous studies on a phase 1B studies have shown even if you have been interacting, disrupting antiretroviral drug, it is able to maintain virological suppression. So in this CROI, the group presented a phase 2 study results using these two bNAbs in patients who have been stopping this antiretroviral drug just by giving this every 6 months, which is simply switched from ART to this combination of bNAbs or to placebo. So this is a study design, which is a phase 2 study on 68 study participants who have got a suppressed viral load and who have started treatment very early with a more than 500 CD4 count, very early recent diagnosis, who got suppressed viral load on everyday oral therapy, randomized into two groups. One group, both the groups, they stopped antiretroviral drug. One group was randomized to receive these two bNAbs, another group just a placebo. There is no drug. And to be the primary endpoint at week 20, then after that again, optional to continue this drug over a period of time with the regular viral load monitoring of every week initially, then every 2 weeks and every month. Then after that, every 2 months. There is a criteria to restart therapy if the patients have got a rebound viral load anytime while doing this viral load monitoring, or when the CD4 have been dropping less than 350, or if they are developing any clinical symptoms. So that's something safety options being provided on this. With the primary endpoint of any time to viral rebound and as well as any virological failure at week 20, with many secondary endpoints on safety and long-term virological suppression. Now, if you see this interesting Kaplan-Meier curve, you see the red color one is on patients who are on placebo with no antiretroviral drug. The other color, what you're seeing is on patients with the two bNAbs without antiretroviral drug. If you see this, if you look into those no viral rebound, almost 75% of the people who are on the bNAbs have got no viral rebound without this, even after disrupting treatment at week 20. And in the placebo, only 8%. So this means there is a paucity out of this, stating that even without antiretroviral drug, these bNAbs, just a single infusion, can help to maintain the viral suppression, over a period of time. Again, when they did a deeper analysis, they found that median time to rebound with bNAb is almost 62 weeks. So that means, by disrupting antiretroviral drug, by preventing them from various adverse effects, just by giving this single shot of bNAbs, we are able to maintain this viral suppression. Again, it's a long way to go. So this is something what we are now very interested over a period of time in patients who are on antiretroviral therapy for many, many years, how we can disrupt these therapy, thereby preventing many toxicities of antiviral drugs by giving this type of modalities, which can be given as a single shot, thereby like a passive immunization, where patients still can maintain virological, suppression. When they looked at those pharmacokinetics, they also model in a way that they found that probably this also can be developed even not just for every 6 months, even for a year. So this is something what's been found there. So that means we have got something coming up where patients who don't want to take antiretroviral drug every day or injectable, or who might have toxicities, just by giving bNAbs, will be able to maintain virological suppression, but we need more data. It's just a phase 2. The investigators again concluded this particular study stating that there is no viral rebound in almost 75% of those who received bNAbs as compared to placebo, which has been safer. And again, these are all not a very good finding, but there are some good findings. And we have to take some of the positives out of that, again, which will be developed by these investigators and the researchers to develop as a treatment modality, how it can be safe in our patients by disrupting antiretroviral drug, by doing these bNAbs over a period of time. Something what wait for that is some of those initial responses, some of the positive finding from this study, which might become a therapeutic modality, might be in the next few years or so. Now I'm going to end my talk by giving a quick snapshot some of the new HIV biomedical prevention therapies. As many of you know, that is Lenacapavir already approved for every 6 months for treatment in patient who got MDR HIV, which has also been studied as a PrEP every 6 months in patients who have got a high risk to HIV acquisition, which was studied already in sub-Saharan Africa, in South Africa, where they have already shown almost zero transmission. So in that, they included both adult and adolescents. Adult data was already been presented. So in this CROI, they also presented the adolescent data. Again, this is quite a large study of 5,000 odd study participants, where they were randomized to every 6 months of Lenacapavir versus everyday PrEP in a high risky population, where they use an everyday PrEP of both tenofovir and as well as TAF emtricitabine. Again, with a primary endpoint of HIV incidence. So this group already earlier showed participants who were on Lenacapavir, these are HIV negative people who have got a high risk to acquire HIV, almost zero transmission. So in this CROI, they also sub-analyzed all those who enrolled, who are all adolescents, and they found in that, again, Lenacapavir arm have zero transmissions. And also they found in that oral therapy also had zero transmission. That means, it's also been good efficacious even in an adolescent population, and they found that it's very safe. And as well as they did a pharmacokinetic studies, even in adolescent, they're able to see the good drug trough level for prevention effect. So again, this purpose study, they concluded it's not only in adult, but also it can be used in adolescents. So this is something what you'll see in the package insert in future for prevention. It can be used in Lenacapavir as a subcutaneous injection as a PrEP, every 6 months, not only in adults, but also in adolescents. Now, based on all these results, now the company Gilead is also developing this PrEP molecule as a once yearly. Now we got every 6 months. Now as a once yearly as a intramuscular injections of 5,000 milligram dosage of 2 different 5 ml. So again, a proof of concept study has already been presented, shows that if you give that once yearly as an intramuscular injections, this Lenacapavir concentration or higher than that what's been already used as a subcutaneous of twice a year. And also they have shown it has been very safe and well tolerated and no major adverse events. And there are some nodules, but it's not been very significant. And also this investigation is ongoing. This is something what we wait for as a long-acting yearly thing. This is something what we need. We don't have a vaccine today, but on the other hand, this can be like a vaccine of having a shot every year, to prevent HIV in future. Also, now there is another pipeline drug of once monthly oral tablet. There are patients who don't want to take this as an injectable, or they don't want to have for a long-term prevention. They just want, hey, this month I want to have a prevention effect because I know I want to travel out. I don't want to get involved in multiple parties and things like that. So I want to have an oral tablet. So every month I want to take it. So do we have a drug? There is a new NRTTI, is again a translocation inhibitor called MK8527, which is again developed. There are population studies that have been developed which is already studied in macaque monkeys, who has shown that once monthly of more than 6 months can maintain a PK level to have a prevention effect. Now, there is a large phase 3 trial which has been developed, and this will be tested against everyday oral PrEP against this once monthly in risky population of cisgender men and transgender women and transgender men and as well as other men who have sex with partners who have got a male sex at birth. And again, this particular study is going to be a large multinational study. This also will be conducted in India. In fact, our site in Chennai, we are preparing ourselves to participate in this study. This is something what we might be looking for as a oral long-acting monthly PrEP. Again, wait for the result. It may take a year or so to get the outcome of these particular phase 3 results. I'm going to conclude this CROI update stating that many presentations were done. Still, HIV is incurable at this time. It persists despite all those antiretroviral drugs because several factors contribute. I think at this time, from whatever learnings from these interesting presentation, how we can prevent antiretroviral resistance, that will be the future question. I think one of those answers is this long-acting high genetic barrier combination antiretrovirals. Many of them are in pipeline. Some of them are already approved. Some of them even might find the guideline soon, WHO guideline, which is going to appear in July. So this is something what you should wait for. Hence, as clinicians, now we are using everyday oral tablet as a fixed dose, TLD or tafemtricitabine and bictegravir in our practice. Don't sit tightly with that. So over a period of time, you may have to keep changing them to a 2-drug option so that you can reduce their toxicity. And also a lot of other new investigational drugs coming up as a long-acting. look for it. This might become your part of our guideline. May not be today, might be in 6 months down the line. Again, look for it. It is. I thank the opportunity for your patient hearing. Happy to take any questions from your own. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Kumar Swami, sir, for your excellent webinar today. And sir, you have highlighted many new trials which were there are presented in CROI. So just to enlist the trials, new trials for cabotegravir, rilpivirine, lenacapavir new trial is there. Then bNAbs, Rio study, then lenacapavir PrEP study which has also come up. And the highlight is basically once yearly intramuscular lenacapavir, a fantastic study, and definitely this 1 monthly oral tablets. So Dr. Kumar Swami sir had touched upon the newest blockbuster, maybe in the future therapies which would come up in the future, not definitely in the 5 years, but the next 10 years. And we could see also in the literature not lot of new mechanism of actions, new class of drugs like capsid inhibitors have been in the horizon. And so the knowledge and research for HIV is now evolving, and we are in an evolving phase. So earlier there were a lot of trials on NRTIs or so on, protease inhibitors, but now there is a totally different class of drugs which are coming, and definitely this will help patients who are suffering from HIV. So with this, so this is for the doctors who have joined, and you have listened to Dr. Kumar Swami's updates. And if there are any questions, you can please put on the chat box so that we can put up these questions to Dr. Kumar Swami, sir.
Maybe I'll put up a question to the company. Mr. Balaji is on the line. So, if this drug called cabotegravir become part of the WHO guideline, in the next few months or so, will that be available to us for clinicians? Long-acting cabotegravir and long-acting rilpivirine.
Thank you, doctor, for putting me on the spot. This is still a work in progress. There are developmental, it's not MQ, but we do understand that this product is being developed by a few other generic manufacturers. Having said that, it has to go through the usual developmental and regulatory processes. So as things stand, I think all these long actings, we should be looking forward in maybe the year 2027. So that will be the
Right.
earliest, whether it's cabotegravir or any other long acting.
Yep. So, and again, thanks all of your efforts. Today the oral antiretroviral drug, it's become so cheaper as compared to many of the other therapies like diabetic therapy, blood pressure management, and variety of other things, even cheaper than many antibiotics we use in our ICU. So, it's because of your efforts to make generically and reduce the cost. So when you develop this long-acting injectable, will that be comparable to the current oral therapy, particularly used in the resource-limited setting in terms of cost?
Yeah, it's too early to discuss that, but that has always been the yardstick, that when you come out with something new, you always like to compare with the standard of care. But it takes a lot of time and process chemistry, both at the API level and at the formulation level, to improve the cost and bring it down to the current standard of care. That is the objective, but we will have to wait and see, because introducing new products has been there. It's not that this is the first time that we are talking about, say, MAB therapy. There has been earlier MAB therapy that is approved by US FDA in the treatment of HIV, but it has not seen the light of the day. So we have
Right.
to balance science. We have to work with science and look at the commercials to reach out the best possible treatment at the most of affordable price. So it's a science that is constantly evolving.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. So Dr. Haripriya Kar, she has put it in the chat box that this is an excellent webinar, and she is thanking you for this. And we just need a feedback on Doravirine Islatravir, because that has also coming up in, there are a lot of studies coming up for this combination. So
Right. So Slatravir, I discussed this here as a oral tablet, along with the Doravirine. That's such a everyday oral tablet. So also Slatravir has also been developed as a long-acting oral pill. In fact, there's a study being presented last year between Lenacapavir weekly oral and as well as Slatravir. But again, there are some challenges to further develop. So I think they have been working on how to refine the product. Also, Slatravir has also been developed as a long-acting injectable for PrEP. That's something that's a process going on. So one thing, this particular molecule was put on a hold for some time by US FDA is because the previous studies, when they use a little higher dosage of 0.5 and 0.75, it caused reduction in the lymphocyte count in people who have been using even in the PrEP trials. And because of it was paused. But now the company has identified the right dosage of 0.25. Now the future studies will go on. Now once that is all done, there may be more and more long-acting preparation using Slatravir every month or every 6 months where we can wait for it either for prevention or for treatment. So right now, the companies may concentrating on pairing Doravirine and Slatravir as an oral tablet. But they also have fine-tuned that molecule, which I said about this MK8527 as a once monthly oral pill for prevention. It's something that is a drug development happening.
yes, thank you, sir. There are two questions from Dr. Sandeep T. So these drugs are not so available in India, but he's asking your basically insights, rather than experience, say insights with respect to the Cogazo. Maybe he's asking for this bNAb.
Yeah, and again, we are not asking. Thank you for this question. Definitely, it's not available in India. May not be available anytime soon. So, but these are some of those positives we can take it up from here. For the development. And we should not underestimate our Indian pharmaceutical industry. If we take in a lot of other fields of medicine, in rheumatology and various other things, we have a lot of other bNAbs are currently being used. Already been used even in COVID times. Early phase monoclonal antibodies are all being used. So these are some of the modalities that they have some positives out of this. Again, compare this with our IPL cricket matches. I'm sure you all will be watching now every day. There might be teams, of course, the teams will be using today. Sorry to say that our Chennai team lost. So again, during the interviews, if you hear always the losing captain always talks about some of the positives out of the losing. Similarly, we have to take some of the positives out of this, probably how it can be used in some select patients. Today, with this potent antiretroviral therapy, thanks to the efforts by our different pharmaceutical industries, our patients live like a normal people, over a period of time. Initially we said 10 years, 20 years, or 30, 40 and beyond. They live like a normal people and they may have a complete lifespan. Whether this everyday oral antiretroviral therapy will be the answer, we do not know. Already we have started seeing adverse effects to that and metabolic complications, bone complications, and renals and so many things. I think to compare all this, there are select patients might need other modalities of therapy, where antiviral sparing drugs. So again, those population might need this type of therapy, giving a shot of bNAb for 6 months or a year, where you can take away antiretroviral drug out and maintain the viral suppression. These are some of the things we may look at in our guidelines, over a period of time. May not be everybody will be put on that. I think some of the positives out of those, we need to use this. And don't underestimate our Indian pharmaceutical industry. They can manufacture anything what's been developed in the West, here at throwaway price. Again, I have a lot of optimism on that. Again, thanks for the question.
Yeah, so a few questions are coming up. The second question was from Dr. Sandeep T. So I'll take the question. So he's asking with respect to long-acting injectables, the patient has to take oral tablets. So maybe his question is asking how these are better than oral fixed dose combinations.
So I think today we have good experience on our patients with everyday oral therapy. But as you know that if you introduce the patient, they hate to take it every day, because it's a pill fatigue or a stigma to take the tablet in front of their family members or with anybody. And also they tend to forget, now our patients they're like normal people. They take the medication, good CD4, suppress viral load. They are busy with their own household chores or with their work or with whatever thing they are doing. They tend to forget the pills. So I think for all these, we need other alternatives like a long-acting oral tablet or long-acting injectable. And there are many patients, they don't know how to take these pills, how we can give it every 6 months. So this is something what being developed. But there are some therapies available like Lenacapavir, but it's subcutaneously every 6 months. But we don't have a partner along with it to give every 6 months. So that's the reason that now they've been developing other bNAbs to partner along with it. Also, now we have cabotegravir that is every 2 months. But again, the company is developing every 4 months and every 6 months. So this is a long-acting era, either antiviral or some of those monoclonal antibodies or broadly neutralizing antibodies. I think these are the signs probably in the next 2-3 years will get stabilized and probably will go towards the therapeutics. So again, if we go back 20 years back, we used to use, or 25 years back, we used to use monotherapy, antiretroviral, then true drug therapy, then came in the triple therapy. So now we are in the phase, similar like that on this long-acting era, might be in the next few years or so, we may have more and more products.
Yes, sir. So doctors are asking questions. So thanks for your insights, sir. So this is from Dr. Parthasarthi. So he's thanking you for the nice presentation. So he's asking that any bNAbs, are they approved by the US FDA?
Yeah. So the whatever I presented today, they're all definitely not gone to the level, still in the phase 2 studies. It has to go a long way, phase 3, then before going to that. So only monoclonal antibody approved for use in HIV therapy is bNAb, so which has already been approved, which is inhibit the CD4 binding site, which is also an anti-cancer drug, now repurposed for HIV, which has already been approved. bNAb, not available in India, but in research setting as part of the MDR HIV. I think there is another question from Dr. Satish Rao on fostemsavir. This is again another maturation inhibitor, developed initially, then put on a hold. Again, now that is been coming up. They have already been fine-tuning the molecule. So I think we have to wait for a little more results. I didn't put up anything on that particular molecule. Probably, hopefully, in a year or so, probably may get some new data out of that. So there is another question on Lenacapavir approved for treatment experience in 8 patients. So right now, Lenacapavir subcutaneous every 6 months is approved by US FDA, and as well as part of those guidelines in the US and in developed world, especially for MDR HIV, multi-drug resistant HIV, they are not recommending at this time for naive patients because you have other therapies available. But on the other hand, it is now have a good effect on PrEP. So again, the debate being, are you going to use this for treatment or for a prevention? This is something what a lot of discussions will happen. But again, Indian generic companies are already started developing this. Hopefully, we'll have this molecule. So at this time, probably the recommendation will come if it is for treatment, mainly for MDR HIV, may not be for naive population at this time. Might be over a period of time, it might be used. So at this time for MDR HIV. But we need a good partner for that. It's every 6 months. We don't have another drug for every 6 months, but a lot on pipeline. So another question on how doravirine scores over efavirenz. So doravirine is a 3rd generation newer NNRTI, and the basic science studies have shown it will also work against the NNRTI mutation which are developed to nevirapine or efavirenz or etravirine or even to rilpivirine. So it can be such one might be a potent drug. So there are studies already been published. Now it's been approved by the US FDA as part of the first line management. So hopefully this doravirine can be another molecule, and not necessarily on any long-acting or anything. Even it's an alternate to our integrase inhibitor. If for some reasons we will not be able to use integrase, probably this can be a molecule. But you need to wait for it. I think the Indian companies, I think, are spending their efforts to develop this. So hopefully we'll have this year. This is a potent third generation in not here.
Right, sir. I'm also checking whether questions have come.
Doctor, a question to you. What percentage of patients have switched to long-acting injectables from the standard once daily oral therapy in the international scenario, even in the Western countries?
It's very newly, that it's very newly approved. Only last year, it became part of the guideline. And again, most of the people living with HIV are resource limited settings. You know very well that 92% of the patients, there are outside US and Europe. So where these therapies are not available or not approved for use. So that means it's a very small percentage. And also discussion with many of those infectious disease clinicians in US and Europe. And again, just they are in the process, they are counseling the patients, and they're also selecting patients who will go on that. They are right now prioritizing because it's more expensive than everyday oral tablet. So it's not available in bulk. So they are prioritizing to patients who are failing therapy with other regimens or who are not adhering to the drugs. So I think they are prioritizing to that population, then probably expand to everybody. I think that's something when it is available in India and it's become part of our guideline, probably we may do, prioritize on a needy population first, then might be, over a period of time to everybody. I know feed the whole world with 40 million people on long-acting injectable, may not be the immediate answer. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of, for example, long-acting cabotegravir in PrEP, I think that's been there for, I think, more than 2 years since it's US FDA approved, or even more than that. So in that case, how many, what percentage do you think have moved to long-acting in PrEP specifically?
Yeah, so this cabotegravir has been available and been used for PrEP. So while you have been using, the Lenacapavir has been launched, so now that's every, 6 months. So probably people might prefer to have that as an option rather than every, 2 months. So probably these every 2 months they are preserving for treatment, and every 6 months Lenacapavir for, prevention. So I don't have a numbers, what proportion of the people already on that. So there are a lot of surveys shows that it is still, it's going up. The number of people receiving long-acting in different clinics is all going over a period of time. It's all based on the availability and the cost. Even in the research with settings, they have a support program using their insurance, which have got certain criteria. Who should go on that, who cannot go on that because of the cost concern. That's something, again, limiting their usage there. And also, I know that it's not like giving like a oral tablet or like a chewing gum, where you need to be given as an injectable, and especially at the buttocks area, where you need a private space, where you need a trained nurse to come and do that. So these are some of those other limiting factors in a research with settings, which can cost a lot of money. Of course, when it's going to be scaled up in our setting, we'll also might face the same.
Right, sir. Thanks for your insights.
I think we have exceeded our time, and if there are no more questions, I think Dr. Ketan, is there any more questions? We can keep on going, but I think we could be sharing Dr. Kumar Swami's email ID so that people can get directly in touch with them. Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Ketan.
Yeah. So this is I will take this last question. This is from Pungalai Selva. So he's asking that, do these long-acting injectables have any interactions with insulin? And the second question is, what is the longest period for which safety data is available? I think he's asking for these long-acting preparations.
So I think the safety data we have for a variety of drugs. For cabotegravir, we have now for 4-year data already been presented and published. For Lenacapavir, now almost like 2-year data. Now 144-week data will be available, it's a safe. Now coming to the interactions with variety of other medications. So these are all studies been ongoing. Right now, we don't have any the good data, especially its interactions and insulin is a very good question. These are some of the things we need to learn. Similar like in current oral drug, like in dolutegravir with the metformin. So now we know that this got interactions where we don't give more than 1,000 milligrams a day. I think that type of studies are needed, even when we are using with the common drugs, not only with insulin but also with the proton pump inhibitors and a variety of other molecules. Because once you're given as a long acting, it's going to be there either for 2 months or every 6 months. So during that time, our patients might go through a variety of lot of other non-communicable diseases and variety of other common illnesses where we may be using variety of antibiotics, including starting with our household azithromycin, which even can have interactions with a lot of other drugs. I think these are some of the studies we need to do. And based on that, there could be package inserts will coming up. Hey, if you're using this Lenacapavir, don't use all these big laundry list of drugs, even for a common use. I think these are some of the studies needed, which will happening over a period of time. Right now, too early to comment on that.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. So I think, thank you, sir, for your valuable insights and bringing a lot of clinical pearls today. So we have with us, sir, Mr. Balaji, who is heading the Conquer business. So I'd like him actually to give the vote of thanks.
So it was a pleasure listening to Dr. Kumar, and we shall continue to bring in such interactive sessions even in the future, because as we thank him, just to remind you that we do so, but we will be back next year again for a similar session to understand more about the emerging trends in the HIV treatment. And science is something that is constantly evolving, and it's always nice to have a tab on what's new in this field, all with a view of trying to improve the quality of life for the patient. So thank you, Dr. Kumar, and we wish all the people who have joined this webinar a happy Saturday, and see you all.
Thank you so much, and you all have a good evening.
Good evening. So thank you, Dr. Kumar Swamy, sir. It was an excellent webinar with a lot of insights you have brought in, and you have talked on the evolving therapies for HIV. I'm sure this will be coming in India in the future. And I also wish to thank the doctors who have joined outside India, who might be in the audience maybe from Malaysia or from other countries. And thank you all for joining this webinar. And such webinars will be brought in by MQR often. So thank you all for joining. And I wish Dr. Kumar Swamy, sir, a happy evening ahead. Thank you.
Good day.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.